These are, that is what I was talking, stations. जितने ज़्यादा स्टेशन होंगे उसकी कैपेबिलिटी बढ़ जाती है उसकी. It is basically weapon carry capability of the car. J10 में यहाँ पे भी है. J10 is wider.
Oh, so it can carry more weapons.
It can carry दो यहाँ पे उस पे ये. JF-17 Block 3 में भी इसमें बना रही हैं इधर एक है.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to another episode of the Pakistan Pivot. Today we are recording on the Pakistan Air Force Day to commemorate the heroics and sacrifices of our armed forces. I have been joined by an Air Force veteran and a visionary, Air Marshal retired Farhat Hussain Khan. He is currently serving as the president of the Center for Aerospace and Security Studies. In his last assignment, he served as the vice chief of the Air Staff. He has co-authored 2 books on the growth of the military aviation industry in Pakistan. He is the recipient of Sitara-e-Imtiaz, Sitara-e-Basalat, and the Hilal-e-Imtiaz. He is also the chief project director of the JF-17 program. So let me please welcome Mr. Farhat Hussain Khan. Let us start with what is the significance of 7th September for the Pakistan Air Forces?
Thank you very much, Michelle. First of all, I must thank you all for inviting me to this very important day that reminds us all of our achievements of the past, also gives us opportunity to drive out some lessons for the next generation. September 1965 is a very famous day in history of Pakistan and history of Pakistan Armed Forces. This is where we went into a war in our self-defense against a much bigger enemy. Particularly when you come to the Air Force, we were pitched against an Air Force which was more than 3 times the Pakistan Air Force. So therefore, fighting against a 3 times larger enemy and defeating it as well calls for some significant mention of its achievement.
There are many heroes that emerged from this war.
Actually, the wars don't start all of a sudden. There is always a lead to those. So some incidents had started in the end of August, beginning of September, particularly from the 1st of September. But on 7th, when you ask the question, 7th is a day where the Indian Air Force thought they will be able to neutralize Pakistan Air Force to achieve their land objectives that they had seen, which famously we all know they were wanting to come to Lahore, they were wanting to take over some other areas where they needed that the Pakistan Air Force should not interfere. So therefore they wanted to take on the PAF on ground. So on 7th, early morning, 20 minutes before sunrise, they decided to attack our main bases in Pakistan, particularly Air Force Base Sargodha, which was housing the main assets of the Pakistan Air Force, and another base which is next to it for 20 kilometers, which is not a main operating base. They also attacked that. So it was the Indian strike. That day they came second time after some time. So nullifying the effects of the Indian Air Force by shooting them down and establishing the credentials of the Pakistan Air Force is what the 7th September is about. Or what happened on 7th September? Now I'll come to that. The Indian Air Force had decided to send multiple formations to attack Sargodha. And on this, the first strike that they came, they attacked a small place called Baghtawala, about 28 kilometers east of Sargodha. And there were a lot of dummy aircraft placed there by the Pakistan Air Force. So they assumed it to be a base and they attacked it, and they only came to know later on that it is not Sargodha. So that is one.
What were the achievements of our Air Force during
yeah,
the
that is what I was
first
coming
response?
to. What it is that day where one achievement that I like to know is M. Alam's achievement of shooting down 5 aircraft. The first strike that he shot 1 aircraft, and then the second strike that the Indian Air Force sent, he shot another 4 hunters. So it is 5 aircraft shot. He is an ace, and that's the history of the subcontinent. Shooting down 5 aircraft in one day.
That is absolutely commendable, and to this day, it's a great feat.
It sent a very strong message to the Indian Air Force that it is not easy engaging the PF at home.
Do tell me about the successes and the significance of the Pakistan Air Force in the 1965 war.
1965 war is very important in our life as an Air Force and as a nation. In the beginning of September, starting 1st September, some movements had started taking place on ground in the Kashmir sector, Pir Panjal Range and Cham sector. This is where Pakistan Army needed support from the PF. And of course, the Indian Air Force was there to support them. So therefore, Pakistan Air Force challenged the Indian Air Force over there. And as the luck would have it, convincingly, a number of IAF aircraft were shot down in these 1 or 2 days. That set in a very severe pressure on the Indian Air Force. They actually had pitched in some aircraft that was not that capable of confronting the capabilities of the Pakistan Air Force and are not delivering on ground. So therefore, that shooting down of a number of aircraft on 1st September onwards set a very severe message in a sense that when we shot a number of aircraft, the Indian Air Force decided to ground a reasonable portion of its fleet because that could not confront the PF.
Even though they were much larger in number.
They were much larger in number. This grounding of some of their aircraft and an organ 2 aircraft, about 80 odd aircraft, when they grounded, the ratio changed in balance of numbers. And it's very important in wars that you fight with good morale. So this lowered the morale of the Indian Air Force, and that was the first step of air superiority where the PF was achieving. Starting 1st September, we started in a massive way to destroy the Indian Air Force, and it started. After that, what happened? Now when this ascendancy had come in, now the PF thought it is important that we strike the Indian Air Force at their home. Normally speaking, smaller air forces don't do this. It's an offensive mission, because offensive missions sometimes are expensive. You need strength, and the cost is heavy. You lose aircraft. But our commander was very brave. He said, let me shoot them at their home base. So their air bases like Halwara, Adhampur, Pathankot, and 2 radars, Amritsar radar, and 1 in south, were selected for destruction. So that is one aspect that this happened on 6th. And
after that,
Indian Air Force had inducted MiG-21 fresh aircraft, new, and it was a Mark II aircraft. They were all destroyed on ground. This was another step that demotivated the Indian Air Force morale. Then comes the 7th September. So ये 4-5 दिन जो अच्छी सी air battle हुई, where the PF mashallah performed very well, set in the stage of air superiority. Now there was no going back from this. The Indians are not scared. In fact, if I tell you, they would be scared of hearing some of the aircraft, like the 104, you must have heard, F-104 was the latest aircraft that we had now. It was very fast aircraft. It has very high thrust acceleration. मैं अगर आप मुझे उर्दू में उसका नाम उसको बदमाश कहना शुरू हो गया था कि ये बदमाश आया तो उससे लोग भाग जाते थे. And there's a very prominent incident that took place in the same area. An Indian Air Force NAT was forced down to land in pursuit by the scare of the 104. And Air Chief Marshal, then Air Chief Marshal, Flight Lieutenant, then Air Chief Marshal Hakeemullah was flying the 104. And there, I think BP Singh or some Singh, he also made an Air Marshal in the Air Force. He landed and he was made a POW. So all these incidents every day happening in the favor of the Pakistan Air Force set in the stage of superiority.
And then comes the
the end of the war, of course.
End of the war, and obviously the Pakistan Air Force established its superiority and its skill level.
Yeah.
Then let's talk about the 1970s.
Then the pilots would be looking forward to going across and shooting the Indians. And in fact, in one of the हमारे एक war hero हैं Air Commodore हैदर साहब, वो कहते हैं the Indian Air Force aircraft were falling from the skies. Your next question is about 71.
जी.
71 was a totally different issue. We had other problems, political, strategic, and those problems had overtaken our leadership and the nation. And therefore the result was unfortunate that we know. But even in that, the performance of Pakistan Air Force was very good. Our number of aircraft that we shot were 2.5 times what the Indians had done to us, even in that war. So PF performed well even in 71. However, because the overall war was lost, so it got into that overshadowing of the performance of the PF.
But the PAF's performance was commended by the international war experts.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Historians have commended both 65. 65 is very special, and 71.
So apart from the PAF's contribution in the wars that were fought, let's talk about the PAF's contribution in more recent operations, such as the Operation Swift Retort in 2019 in Balakot, when we shot down the Indian planes and even captured their wing commander Abhinandan. So do tell us about that operation and our achievements and how we established the writ against India.
Actually, PF in particular, and our military strategy in general, we are not offensive by design. We have no offensive designs. Our armed forces are purely defensive to protect our own motherland. So is the PF. But remember, when you want to defend, you have to prove your credentials. You just can't say I can defend. You've got to demonstrate the capability. And that normal is through deterrence. Pakistan's policy of the strategy of war is also based on deterrence. That means, look, we know what you are, but we are also prepared. So don't come towards us. If you come, we will cause an irreparable damage to you. That is what our strategy of deterrence is. So what happened in 2019? This was a step by our adversary on the east to establish its hegemonic designs under the garb of some terrorism or things like that. So they decided to attack Pakistan. What is the option with us? We had to show our strength. Look, you have come and now we will cause you. So they came at night. The damage was not much. We did not lose any assets in that war, except few trees that you all know were destroyed.
And we had a phenomenal response time.
So that is what the deterrence is. We were already prepared for it. Much before that, our plans were ready. How will we react? It doesn't come overnight. And they were all rehearsed plans. They came at night. If you remember, our government also declared that now it is our turn to tell you what we will do. Wait for us. We will come at our choosing. So Pakistan Air Force engaged the Indian Air Force in broad daylight and shot the pilot that you know. We have another shot, Sukhoi. So this damage, and in that process, the Indian Air Force got so confused, they even shot their own helicopter. This set in once again that Pakistan Air Force is capable of defending its airspace, and let there be no confusion. We are fully prepared for it, and we will not, inshallah, let anybody deter us and challenge our skies.
What is our role and contribution in training other air forces and fighting alongside other air forces such as the Jordanian Air Force and Iraqi Air Force?
Yeah, Mashal, Pakistan Air Force is known and is reputed for its quality of training and performance. In that, we have very strong relationship with some of the air forces across, particularly the Middle East. Pakistan Air Force played a very significant role in raising the UAE Air Force right from the beginning. UAE Air Force commander used to be a Pakistani, the pilots used from Pakistan. They gradually built it up to this level. Similarly, we had our pilots going to various air forces like Iraqis in Jordan on exchange postings and for training assignments to the Air Force. So we have our role in Jordanian Air Force, exchange postings, training role, Iraqi Air Force, and also have played a role in 1967 and 73 wars of the Middle East. A very famous pilot, squadron leader then, Saif al-Azam, who died, I think, in June 2020, who was finally in Bangladesh Air Force. He served Pakistan Air Force, fought in 1965 war. He served the Jordanian Air Force, fought from their side, and also served the Iraqi Air Force. It's a unique distinction that this officer served 4 air forces: Pakistan Air Force, Bangladesh Air Force, and before that, Iraqi and the Jordanian Air Force. So we have a very significant role in training and raising these air forces, helping them in war also.
We all know that the recent floods in Pakistan have completely devastated all the provinces in the country, and the armed forces along with the Air Force have been playing a significant role in the relief and rescue operations. Do tell us some more about that, and also as we were discussing earlier about the Air Force's role during the COVID.
Yeah, actually the Air Force uses the vertical dimension, that is the air power. So the ground obstructions do not obstruct the Air Force operations. Therefore, in all these operations like flood, earthquake, when you have to reach somewhere, the ground obstructions don't stop you. For instance, there is a lot of water that obstructs the ground relief efforts of our civilian infrastructure, damage, stagnated water, flowing water, and all this. The Air Force or the air power, similarly with the Army also, and the Pakistan Navy also, can cross these obstructions and deliver things where people are stuck in the devastated areas. So, like this time in 2010 also, Pakistan Air Force played a very significant role in transporting the essential supplies to the flood victims, medical care, and bringing them over back to the hospitals and camps where they could provide medical care. Similarly, the Air Force also is always the first to go if the Pakistan government decides to help an odd country outside in flood relief or earthquake activities. Our C-130 and the transport fleet is always available, utilized by the government to transport, help the other countries in the hour of need. So Air Force helps to build up the relationship with the other countries at these levels, at friendly countries, and also is very extremely helpful in providing search, rescue, and relief to flood affected areas and earthquake areas.
I mean, since you're here, it would be imperative for me to obviously talk to you about the JF-17, since you worked so closely with the project, as I mentioned earlier. Do tell us about the road to JF-17, developing them with the Chinese government.
Okay. First of all, the JF-17. Why have the JF-17? Second question that is very convenient, simple to ask. Why is the PAF doing this industrial activity of manufacturing aircraft? I'll try and answer these questions. First is, why do we need the JF-17? In late 80s and 90s, Pakistan Air Force, as per its plans, looking ahead 20-30 years ahead, visualize that our Air Force fleet of A5s and F6s and some Mirages would be due for replacement in the beginning, middle and end of 2005, 10 or so, depending upon the life of each frame. So we needed an aircraft for replacement. We also know, at that time, it was discussed that 20 years down the line, when we need replacement, we may not have enough money to buy from the international market. One. Secondly, unfortunately, geostrategic compulsions sometimes restrict suppliers to supply things to us. So these two things of financial and compelled us to launch an indigenous program. Now, indigenously, our private sector industry, even the military sector industry, was not capable of launching an aircraft design, development, and manufacturing on its own. So, after carrying out the gap analysis of the industry, we found out that we ourselves will not be able to launch such a sophisticated platform single-handedly. So, we decided to have partnership with China. China is ahead of us in industry. China is ahead of us in technologies. So the two sides joined. The contract was signed the first MOU was signed in 1994, and the contract was signed in 1999 for development of a fighter aircraft that would meet the PAF requirements of 21st century. And the aircraft would be developed on 50-50 basis. That means jointly, both sides will participate in design. The first stage of an aircraft, to answer your second question, is development. Paper to the machine. Then when you develop few, then you develop some aircraft 8, 9, 10 in the form of small batch for further refining the design parameters. That takes few years. After you certified your own design, in this small batch production, you go for batch production in development. After testing. So design was done in China, participation of both sides. Development of initial stages of still small batch production was done in China, but funded and participation of both sides. Then manufacturing stage, we have a reasonable share in the manufacturing, and so almost more than half the aircraft is manufactured in Pakistan, and the remaining half is manufactured in China. So now it's a partnership of manufacturing.
That was a very forward and visionary thinking to identify a need in the future, 20, 30 years down the line. And then how are we going to meet that need? Also, the PAF is the first air force in the world that manufactures its own fighter jets. That's quite an accomplishment. And if we talk about the JF-17 Thunder, and then if we compare that with India's air force capabilities and the fighter jets that are in their use, how would you say are our aircrafts, the aircrafts that we have developed, superior to the Indian aircrafts?
Okay. Before I answer this comparison of the Indian effort and our effort in this field, the first you mentioned, Pakistan Air Force is the only Air Force. Yes, Pakistan Air Force is the only Air Force that is engaged in design, development of and manufacturing of a fighter aircraft. This is unique. Excellent achievement, but compulsion. Air forces do not design, develop aircraft. It's job of the industry. And however, since Pakistan's industry did not have a base at that time that it could take such a gigantic activity, so the Air Force took up this challenge. And now the industry is developed and then things are moving forward. Coming back to comparison with India, let's compare apple with apple and oranges with oranges. Their indigenous development of fighter aircraft and our effort, our model and their model. Indians started their own design of their own aircraft in the beginning of 1980. The aircraft name is LCA, Light Combat Jet. We started our program, as I said, in late 90s. So they were ahead of us about 1.5 decade. This is one. When we come to the operational development, production and operationalize, we inducted the first aircraft in March 2007.
Okay.
F-17 was in Pakistan flying, and it first flew on 23rd March 2007.
Okay.
India, that started off in 81, was nowhere close to this at that time also. They came into this stage much later. So we started late and caught up with them and went ahead. Why and how? Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Actually, we would, since the Air Force was doing it, I call it, the Air Force always kept its feet on ground, never overestimated itself. We decided to go from easy, or for that matter, from unknown to known to unknown. What we could do it first, then learn a little bit, do it, then let another step, do it, and achieve the objective in a time frame, milestone. Don't engage into activity that you can't do it. Do it later on, when you can do it. But on the Indian side, they had a different philosophy. They psychologically thought there's a bigger country and bigger industry, they should have everything of their own. Although they were not having all their own, they were buying things and getting it across, but they wanted to project it like that. So everything they wanted to have new. In Pakistan Air Force, when we're talking about it, of the JF-17, we had concluded at that time that Pakistan and China combined together cannot have their own engine. It is better to buy it at this time. We try it later. So we went the Russian way and we contract through side agreed to put an RD-93 engine, which is a Russian engine. Later on, now the Chinese have developed an engine. But at that time, had we said, okay, we'll develop an engine, program will be delayed by another 10 years. The Indians said, no, we must have an aircraft with our own engine. So they wanted to develop their own. When they failed to develop their own engine, now they are flying with the American engine. So they lost that decade in developing an engine, which they could not. Okay. इसी तरह और बहुत सारी चीज़ें उसमें टेक्नोलॉजीज में आती हैं जो कि we thought will go from known to unknown, easy to difficult. That saved a lot of time for the Pakistan Air Force because we were pitched against our milestones of replacing aircraft.
Yeah.
We could not afford to have delays in the program. So it's a very fast program. From drawing board to development, it's 22 months, which is probably a record.
And what do you think, how much export potential do you see in the JF-17s?
Okay. Once again, when you talk of potentials, the aircraft must meet the client's requirement. When they want to buy, somebody wants to buy it, they have their own ASAR, we call it Air Staff Requirement. The client Air Force defines parameters that must be in this aircraft. Technically and financially. It must be as per their pocket also. So these parameters and must be available also. So in this category, there was a great demand in the world, true. And in the affordability cost. When the aircraft JF-17 became available, there is no aircraft in the world in these parameters to be afforded at such lower cost. It is termed as Thunder.
So that makes it quite lucrative.
Yeah, it makes it. It is called JF-17 Thunder. In one of the air show, when it came up with in competition with others, people called it Thunder from the East. Of an aircraft offering capabilities at 1/3 the cost that the world is offering. So it is very lucrative. So things are progressing. We have managed some sales. We'll manage the sales are jointly Pakistan and China.
There has been quite a lot of international interest.
Yeah, there is a lot of interest because the aircraft is affordable. It has technologies that are not subject to sanctions. Chinese don't believe in sanctions.
Yeah.
So it is a hot cake in the market, and we pray that we make success in making more clients. We have made some, we'll inshallah make some more clients.
Okay. And then I know that recently we have inducted some J-10s into our fleet. How would you compare the J-10s with the JF-17s? And also the J-10s, they're more suitable for air-to-air combat and strike missions, if I'm correct.
No, J-10 is the latest induction. Actually, देखें, हमें एक minimum credible deterrence रखनी पड़ती है to survive against the much stronger enemy. Induction of JF-17 played a major role in setting the balance right. It has set the balance right in its own category of जितने भी पुरानी जहाज हैं इंडियन एयरफोर्स के पास या हमारे एयरफोर्स, induction of the JF-17 has settled a lot of things, balance. Now coming to the J-10 and on the Indian side, it's Rafale. They bought a Rafale aircraft, which of course is much more capable than what they have. They have Mirage 2000. They have the Sukhoi 30. But Rafale outperforms these. How? The beyond visual range performance, the air-to-ground precision capability, and air superiority role. In all its roles, it is a high-tech aircraft. So it would upset the balance of air power in subcontinent. So we had to balance it out. Like I said earlier, we are not aggressive by design.
Yeah,
So we were
strategy
not
and
the first to
deterrence.
take this step. We had to ensure that the PF has a capability that challenges the enemy's capability that they acquired. To answer your next question, that it is an air superiority fighter, no. It is a very potent air superiority and air-to-ground attack. It is equally good in all roles. It has air-to-air refueling, so it provides a long endurance. The number of stations that has, it carries a large variety of weapon load, air-to-air and air-to-ground, and air-to-surface. Has a long range parameters in terms of endurance, in terms of sortie generation capability. Same as in Rafale, these are compatible platforms.
I want to now talk about the modern methods of warfare, such as non-kinetic warfare, force multipliers, and artificial intelligence. How do they play into the Air Force?
Achha, let me first explain it a little. That air forces in specific and the air power in general are high-tech. The technologies affect the air power operation faster than the other services. Therefore, any change in technologies in terms of new development starts to affect the air power the first. For instance, earlier on, we started off when we were in the Air Force, and then before that, we used to fight from 2,000, 3,000 feet bombing and visually picking up an aircraft and shooting. Gradually, it got transferred into beyond visual and deliveries, air-to-air radars, and then came the force multipliers like the air-to-air refuelers, standoff deliveries, precision guided weapons. These things started adding to the dimensions of the air power. इन चीज़ों से क्या हो रहा है कि आजकल warfare as compared to, let's say, 65 or even later, आजकल warfare में pilots एक दूसरे को देखेंगे भी नहीं. They'll be 50 miles away, let's say, and they'll be shooting at each other. And there'll be results coming without looking at the target. So therefore, these things are now changing the characteristics, changing the nature of the warfare. इससे क्या हो रहा है? The weapons are becoming more deadly. The employment is becoming complicated. So therefore, more deadly weapons means the warfare would be more destructive. It will cause more damage than it used to. One aircraft can cause much more damage than it caused 50 years back. So destructive warfare, quick warfare, because the data available to everybody is so much that you are visible all the time, whatever you're doing. So you got to do it quicker and faster, so that you don't provide reaction to the enemy to react. So the air war would be fast, air war would be destructive. When these two things happen, they cause a lot of economic damages.
Yeah.
So the nations will suffer at the end if the wars prolong. Therefore, the wars would be shorter in duration. Every commander would like to finish it as soon as possible. So this is the dimension of the air warfare that is coming. Second thing is, the air power, because of the nature of the employment and the characteristics of the air power, is gaining more significant in the role that it has in the joint warfare, supporting the land forces, supporting the naval warfare. The air power is getting more significant. Earlier on, we would have to pick up a freighter or a naval ship on ground to shoot it. We don't have to now pick up on the radar from 120 miles. So the significance is increasing as far as the Air Force is concerned. That puts more responsibilities. That puts responsibilities of higher level of training, higher capability of weapon requirements. So therefore, that is what the PAF is working every day. When you talk of JF-17 induction, it is with capabilities. When you talk of J-10, it is much more capability. So in order to keep abreast the developments and to maintain our theory valid as far as the deterrence is concerned, the PAF has to develop itself and train itself at par or ahead of the enemy. One. So the next element that is coming, very recent, is non-kinetic element of the air warfare. Non-kinetic is, you don't see what is happening. Cyber warfare, artificial intelligence. Like, just simple example of smartphone हमारा जो है, you Google anything thrice, fourth time you automatically आपको दिखाना शुरू करेगा.
Yeah.
That is coming up applicable in the air warfare also. Of course, in the other domains also. The cyber warfare is going to be very significant. There are countries developing fast in these dimensions. India is developing. So we also have to move in this way. So in the future, if there are kinetic means, that would make the difference. Non-kinetic means would make equal difference. And let me give you one example. The decision-making process that the pilot goes through or a commander goes through. It's a process. It's famously, there's a term called OODA loop: operate, detect, and act. So you pick up a target, see the behavior, analyze it, and now act to destroy it. Now with this kind of, if you see a target, it gives you little time, you got to be faster. And the information comes faster. So this decision loop has shrunk. The decision making has to be much quicker to take on the same enemy that was earlier on. Similarly, so you got to penetrate to counter the enemy, you got to penetrate enemy's OODA loop. And that is where the cyber warfare comes. You penetrate enemy's decision making and weaken its decision by delaying. Let's say his decision gets delayed by 30 seconds. 30 seconds is long time wasted. So all these technologies that we're talking, मैं इसको simplify करने की कोशिश कर रहा हूँ, हालांकि these are highly technical terms. Artificial intelligence is the in thing. Cyber is in. Cyber is available, and both these technologies, and there's a quantum computing and so many other technologies. They're always, of course, they are in the civil sector also, but their military application is becoming significant. So the air forces world over, those who matter, are already moving in the direction of non-kinetic warfare to strengthen its ability of kinetic warfare.
Lastly, I would just want to talk about, we've already discussed the wars that we fought, and we talked about different warfare, and we talked about the JF-17s and the J-10s. But I want to talk about the internal war that Pakistan has been fighting since many decades. And we have sacrificed tremendously. We have achieved greatly in our counter-terrorism operations. What role has the Pakistan Air Force played in counter-terrorism operations? And I know specifically that we have been able to minimize casualties in our airstrikes as compared to the American drones. And it has been highly precise. I mean, that's a feat in itself.
Actually, terrorism is a very unfortunate phenomenon. It is affecting the whole world. It has, if there is a country that has suffered from it, probably Pakistan is the maximum loser in this field. It has lost 80,000 personnel, unfortunately. I don't think any war can claim this unless there is a nuclear. No war can claim 80,000 loss world over. आप इनको देखें 65, 71, कारगिल और जितने भी 70 अरब इजराइल वॉर 1000 लॉसेस लाइफ हमने तो बहुत ज़्यादा लॉस बर्दाश्त किया इसमें very unfortunately, but we have gone through, we are in it. We've traveled a long distance in countering it, and for the last few years we are better off than what we were 15 years back, 20 years back. The air power has played and would continue to play a very significant role in synergy with land forces. This is a war that is to be fought by everybody in Pakistan. On the military side, these services have to fight a war in synergy with each other. But where would the air power come in? Like we know these Zarb-e-Azm, the other exercises, exercises that we had for countering the terrorism, which has unfortunately affected life of every Pakistani. So the Air Force, because of its precision attack capability, because of staying away from the enemy's firing ranges, can cause more destruction on the enemy than going physically there. So it provides you a platform, it provides you a means of engaging the enemy and causing it destruction, staying safe. So that's the role of the air power, and Air Force is playing that role ever since we are engaged into this war on terror as a nation, as a military. I think we have suffered, and hats off our appreciation for those who have sacrificed in fighting this menace of war on terror, which has caused huge losses to our society. Our civil armed forces have suffered, our military has suffered, our civilian brethren have suffered, and we have suffered huge economic losses. But the silver lining is Pakistan's armed forces, Air Force, Army, Navy combined, have made a very significant success in countering the war on terrorism, and we are now returning towards, hopefully, normal life in due course.
Yeah. We hope so, that's the case. And we can't wait for a day when we do not have any terror-related incidents in our country. Thank you so much for your time. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you very much.
And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and experience with us.
Thank you very much for inviting me, and good luck to you in future also.
Thank you so much. Please like, share, and subscribe. And if you have any feedback, that would be wonderful. And do check us out next week.